Welcome to New York's #2 sports show. The Rangers lose to the Philadelphia Flyers by a score of 8-5 at Madison Square Garden as the Rangers are on the brink of elimination. I'll be honest, I was rooting against the Rangers in this game. I mean, the Lightning game was pretty much it for me as far as any last-ditch hopes that they could make the playoffs, and that was only furthered by the Montreal Canadiens winning last night. So, while they weren't mathematically limited, they're still not mathematically limited. They're on the brink. All it takes is, I mean, it's going to happen soon, and it could happen as soon as tomorrow night against the Islanders if the Rangers do lose that game. But just it's pretty embarrassing hockey at this point, and like the telecast was pleasant with Sam Rosen and John Davidson. Definitely a throwback, and in a lot of ways, a realistic throwback. Most of my fandom where John Davidson was the announcer was during some really bad years for the Rangers, where you did have games like this. Um, and the Rangers allowed 6 goals in the third period. Now, 2 of them were empty net goals, right? So it's a little misleading. And it was actually a 9-goal period. It was 2-2 going into the third, and the final score was 8-5. And Jonathan Quick was in net for the Rangers and was not good. He did, to be fair, the goaltending in this one, and in net for the Philadelphia Flyers was Alexei Kolosov, and this was his first NHL uh, start since January 2nd. So he, is not someone. I guess he's really the third Flyer goalie probably in the organization. Um, and both goalies I actually thought were pretty good the first couple of periods for the most part. Now, Quick had a bad goal out in the second. Then the third, it was really kind of bad on both ends, but Quick especially. The thing is, when Jonathan Quick is horrible, when Jonathan Quick is bad, it is really something else. And now his season numbers are really quite ugly. I think his save percentage is down to 893. And but the interesting thing with him is like he still does make great saves. I've spoken about this before. A lot of it is because of his style of play is such that puts him in positions to make these crazy saves. But even beyond that, there have been a lot of games where he was truly like locked in and dialed in. So it is all or nothing. It is both extremes with Jonathan Quick. So he still has it in him, but there's not a whole lot of consistency. Again, the Quick piece is more related to this game and not so much a general thing, right? He's the backup goalie who, quite honestly, is probably one of the leaders in that locker room, one of the more liked and respected players there. But it does make me think, as far as next season goes, where the Rangers did give him an extension. Well, it's not as if he's had like a great season. He hasn't. He was much more effective last year. So you know, I think that we can pencil him in as the backup, but with performances like this, I don't know how secure that necessarily is. So, and here's the other thing: if the Rangers, even though they were mathematically alive, you have to think if the Rangers were still very much in the playoff picture, that Igor Shesterkin would have played this game, and they would have just probably rode him out to the finish line. Um, so that's the thing, right? As much as in a lot of ways, Laviolette, the roster deployment was such that, um, you know, like Gabe Perreault is a healthy scratch. It was basically the same lines as last game, except Brett Berard in, Gabe Perreault out. So and so they weren't really giving like young kids a chance. It wasn't like that. Now, if and when the Rangers get eliminated, will we see a difference? Maybe. Who knows? But that's kind of I'd rather see some of the younger players get a chance just to see what they can do. But also I get it in the sense that you're not eliminated yet. So let's talk about the lineup real quick. Keandre Miller was out again, and it still makes it strange to me, and no one's making a big deal about it, and it's really it isn't, in the long run, but Kendrick Miller, he was good enough to be involved in warm-ups. He took basically, took practice reps in the morning, and he was part of the of warm-ups, and so, as was Zach Jones, and ultimately, Keandre Miller was a scratch, so I suppose that he is dealing with an illness that is bad enough that it's kept him at a couple games, but not bad enough that you know, he took warm-ups, so I don't know if there's anything more to it than that. You would think he'll play tomorrow night against Sounders, considering he was this close, but he was out again, and so Zach Jones takes that spot next to Will Borgen, and like I said before, Gabe Perreault was a healthy scratch, and Brett Perreault was in. Um, I'd like to see Gabe Perreault. I'm not even saying that Gabe Perreault has been all that great, right? Game one, he had some chances, and that was probably the best of his 3 games played. But here you are now. May as well see what the kid can do. With only a few games left in the season. Now 4 games left in the season. So again, for this game, you know, TNT did a great job as far as, having Sam and JD together for one last time. It had been their first broadcast together since the end of the 2006 season. So not quite 20 years, but, 19. It's been a long time, and it was really nice to see them call a game together. And it's a shame what the Rangers have done in Sam Rosen's final season. Just a total disgrace for this team. Um, but Rangers did have a pretty good first period. They were the better team. Now, very, very early on, the Flyers, first 5 minutes, I thought the Flyers were okay. But then, like, after that, like 3 quarters of that period, Rangers really controlled play. And you could say the same thing with the Tampa game, where the Rangers were the better team in the first period. Of course, two totally different situations. The Flyers are not going to make the playoffs. And that was evident in this game. Even though they won, the Flyers made a lot of mistakes, a lot of bad turnovers and penalties and things like that. But, um, they fired John Tortorella a few weeks ago, and Brad Shaw is their interim head coach. And since they have made that switch, the Flyers are actually 4-1 and playing some inspired hockey. And you can tell that there is some young talent on that team. Whereas for the Rangers, their production is all veterans. And that's kind of a concern in moving forward with them. But here's kind of the interesting thing, um, which we'll get into. But at 1:15, right away, Mika Zibanejad draws a penalty shot, slashed by Cam York on a breakaway. And Zibanejad, look, he ends up having a really nice night. He ends up with 4 assists. Like, you can't take that away from it, even though it was far from a perfect game from Mika, but he did have that. But Zibanejad, and shootouts and breakaways used to be his thing. They're really not anymore. He just shoots it wide. He was trying to, you know, he knew where he wanted to go with it, and he shot it wide. So not a great penalty shot attempt for Zibanejad. So the score, it remains scoreless early. And then at 6:52, the Flyers take a penalty as Zach Jones is tripped. But the Rangers don't score on the power play. And again, the power play was an utter joke. Just to jump ahead, they go 0 for 3 in this game, and the Flyers get a shortened goal. So here it is. Since I think it was around March 5th, like over a month of play on Ranger power plays, their opponents have scored more than they have. So that is now 4 shorthanded goals allowed. And the Rangers have only scored 3 power play goals. So a -1 goal differential in what is probably about 50 power play opportunities. That is unthinkable. And one of the major reasons this was one of the best power plays in the league annually. And for them to go from one of the best to one of the worst, they basically went from like the number 3 power play, like the number 27. It is um, hard to comprehend how awful it is. But on this power play, the first one, they don't score. And then at 9:34, they take a too many men on the ice penalty, which has been a problem. We haven't seen it as much very recently, but on the whole this season, too many men on the ice penalties have been a thing for the Rangers, and it happens again. But here's the funny thing. And as bad as the penalty kill has been lately, because it has been, they dropped off precipitously. They have the most shortened goals in the league. That they do get some of their most consistent offense and dangerous chances on the penalty kill. And sure enough, they get a short-handed goal. And it's Vincent Trocheck who scores his 23rd goal of the season from Zibanejad and Jonathan Quick. So Jonathan Quick gets his first point of the season at 11:33 of the first period. Quick kind of just rims it around the boards. Zibanejad makes a soft sort of backhand pass to a streaking in Trocheck, and Trocheck with a nice backhand shot, gets elevation on it, puts it under the crossbar, and the Rangers take a 1-0 lead. And the Rangers were definitely the better team in the first. They outshoot the Flyers 12-5 in the first period. But the second period was the Flyers got better and better as this game progressed. And the second period, the play evened up a little bit more. And at 9:03, Tyson Forster scores his 20th goal of the season from Noah Cates. And this would be Tyson, to give you a sneak preview, Tyson Forster gets a hat trick in this game. It was the first goal that he would get on the night. And it was a situation where Zibanejad was unable to clear the puck. He was trying to poke it out as Braden's trying to gave him a pass, near the boards, somewhat, near the blue line. JT Miller was over the blue line and Zibanejad was unable to clear it. And so Noah Cates finds a somewhat open Tyson Forster and he wrists it home from kind of far out. Not a great goal by Jonathan Quick. It was far from his worst. We'll talk about, there was a couple that were much, much worse, but that makes it 1-1 on the Forster goal. Then at 12:09, Jacob Peltier high six Urho Vakanainen. Uh, and the Rangers, of course, do not score that power play, but it gets worse because at 16:17, Nick Seeler holds Mika Zibanejad, and on this one, and mind you, around the time of that goal by Tyson Forster, Artemi Panarin left the game briefly. He took a puck to the face and had to get stitched up. So he was out of the mix kind of in the middle of the second period. So he was not part of that power play that Vakanainen drew, but he was on the power play that Zibanejad drew. And sure enough, the Flyers get a shorthanded goal. It's Garnet Hathaway scoring his ninth goal of the season from Ryan Poehling at 16:43. And this was a bad play by JT Miller, who did not have a great night. He did eventually score, but Miller kind of flubs the puck in the direction of Trocheck. Trocheck takes a hit, and down they go the other way. And Travis Sanheim kind of sets a little bit of a pick where he kind of gets in the way of Adam Fox. And so Hathaway shoots it through them and through Quick. Not a good goal by Jonathan Quick as it goes through the 5-hole and trickles by him. He needs to stop that. But yet it's another shortened goal out of the Rangers, which makes it 2-1. However, a quick response to the Rangers, and sure enough, it's Artemi Panarin, who returned from, that cut and scores his 35th goal of the season from Zibanejad and Vakanainen. So Rangers tie it up right there. And look, Panarin, out of all the veterans, and look, his style of play, and we'll talk about it in the third period. Look, defensively, he's not good. Not good at all. But in terms of the game-breaking skill that he brings, it's still there. And for him to have 35 goals does say something. He still is clearly the offensive catalyst on this team. And it was a nice play. He makes a nice move around the defenseman and just a good, slick backhand goal past Kolosov to tie it up at 2. We go to the third period, and this is where things get just bonkers. In the third, the Flyers outshoot the Rangers 17-7. So it wasn't just on the scoreboard. The Flyers were the better team in the third period, but also they did get help from some bad goaltending by Jonathan Quick. But at 3:05, it was Travis Sanheim scoring his 8th goal of the season from Cates and Bobby Brink. And this is a play where Matt Rempe loses possession of the puck in the defensive zone, and that's been a bit of an issue for Rempe as far as those turnovers in the defensive zone. And it leads the Flyers kind of having some numbers to the left of Jonathan Quick. And it would be a situation where Sanheim makes a nice pass to Cates. Quick makes the initial save, but the puck kind of squirts free, and Sanheim shoots it into somewhat of an empty net as who was it? I think Othman and Zach Jones were just not quick enough to get there. And with Zach Jones, look, he's much, much too aggressive in the defensive zone, and it does lead to a lot of dangerous opportunities the other way. However, even though the Rangers are trailing 3-2, they do tie it up as Johnny Brodzinski scores his 11th goal of the season from Vakanainen and Braden Schneider at 5:38. So give Vakanainen 2 assists on the night with that. And so the fourth line kind of gave up a goal, and now they get it back. If you want to call this the fourth line, it's kind of more of the third line, in my opinion, but that's here nor there. But just a shot by Brodzinski, it deflects off of a Flyers stick up top and past Kolosov. That's the thing with Brodzinski. He's one of the few guys that's not afraid to shoot, and it's led to him having a pretty solid goal total at 11 now. And then the Rangers actually take the lead. JT Miller scores his 20th goal of the season, combined with the Canucks and the Rangers, assisted by Zibanejad and Cooley at 7:01. And on a night where JT Miller wasn't great, and again, to me, the points are misleading for him overall, it's a 3-on-2 situation for that line. And Zibanejad, again, with a nice sort of backhand pass cross ice, and JT Miller with the quick shot and scores. Not a great goal by Kolosov, but, when you have those odd man rush opportunities with the talent there, it's going to result in some goals. So Rangers take a 4-3 lead, but then a very quick response by Philly. This is where the game is getting kind of crazy. And at 8:01, so a minute later, they tie it up, the Flyers, that is, and it's Jacob Peltier scoring his 6th goal of the season from Tippett and Poehling. And this was one where Artemi Panarin is back on the play, and that's a situation where other teams take advantage of it. When Panarin is back on defense to cover up for like a defenseman, it's a major problem, and it kind of does result that way. And Zach Jones and Will Borgen were way up way up on the play. Borgen trying to make a hit. I'm not sure what Zach Jones was doing exactly. And it kind of leads to a little bit of a 2-on-0 in front where Tippett takes the shot from the point, and Flyers had two guys there, and it goes off of Peltier and past Quick. I'm not sure what Lafreniere was doing there. Again, Lafreniere has been such a major, major disappointment. You don't even really notice him. And when you do, it's usually something negative. So that makes it 4-4 right there. And then the Flyers take the lead and for good. Sean Couturier scores at 11:55, his 15th goal of the season, assisted by Michkov and Konechny. And it was basically where Konechny gets a little bit of space, making some moves around Vakanainen. And but really just a bad play by Jonathan Quick as an innocent shot by Michkov that should have just been handled by Quick ends up as a juicy rebound. And Sean Couturier just buries it home. Really bad job by Quick again. There were two or three just egregious goals allowed by Jonathan Quick. And even the one, and then just some other ones that weren't great either. So that makes it 5-4. And then the Flyers take a 6-4 lead at the 15:33 mark of the third. Tyson Forster's second goal of the night, 21st goal of the season from Sanheim and Sealer. And this was one where just not made, really not a great job by Vakanainen and Steiner. Vakanainen was kind of late to get to the puck. Sanheim kind of beats him to it. And just a cross-ice pass to Forster, and just easy goal makes it 6-4 Philly. Then the Flyers had a chance to wrap the game up via an empty net goal that they weren't able to get, and it results in an icing. And then the Flyers got a little too aggressive. It was almost Ranger-like, just not smart hockey that leads to a goal by the Rangers. It's Chris Kreider, who was on for the 6-on-5 situation, scoring his 21st goal of the season from Zibanejad and Fox. So Mika Zibanejad with 4 assists on the night, and his career totals kind of continue versus the Philadelphia Flyers. He's really kind of had their number, in the course of his Ranger career. But it is a goal for Kreider. He does find ways to get goals still, um, even though he really has been an absolute joke. But it was nice to play Fox, where he kind of just goes down in a last sort of gasp effort, and he kind of causes the turnover. Zibanejad gets the puck and just kind of spin arounds and finds a wide open Kreider, who has a lot of room and just buries it by Kolosov to make it 6-5. And I'm thinking to myself, because I'm rooting against the Rangers at this point, it's like, this better not be the first time we have the Rangers score an empty net goal down by 1, right? This isn't the first time the Rangers scored an empty goal down by more than 1, but they have not had a game-tying last minute or whatever you want to call it goal in a 6-5 situation. That continues, but they came close. And Kreider, the thing is, Kreider has lost almost all ability in that net front row, where, yes, he's still capable of being in the right position to get, I don't even know if I want to call it close in goals. It's more like off rebound. Like, he can still get deflections and he can still get those easy wrist shots. But I'm talking about like just burying rebounds and being quick with it. Where he used to be like, he was just, automatic in front. There was a situation where he had, and we've seen this in other situations. I can think about other times where late in games where he's been the one that's had close to the best chance and he's late to it. He doesn't get it. Flyers do clear the zone. Adam Fox takes a hit from Forster, and Forster gets the hat trick goal. His 22nd goal of the season from Brink and Sealer at 19:05. Yeah. So, a situation where, again, it was a clean hit. Fox takes the neutral zone. Forster shoots it down and scores. And then, for good measure, the Flyers score another empty net goal. Owen Tippett's 20th goal of the season from Couturier and Sealer makes it 8-5, and that's your final score. So a wacky game for Sam Rosen and John Davidson to call. More embarrassment for the Rangers, allowing 6 goals in the third. Granted, for, 2 of those 6 were empty net goals. But, and look, this isn't the first time this season that I've been really rooting against the Rangers. Late December, early January, that's pretty much where I was. I guess really towards the end of them going 4-15, and I guess even when they were breaking out of it a little bit, at that point they were so bad that I wanted, changes to be made, and I just felt that was in their best interest. And then they kind of went on a little bit of a run in January and for parts of February. And now it's back to just really, really just bad play. Defensively, this seems an absolute just team defense, right? I'm not even specifically talking about the defensemen. Team defense, players are just wide open on these teams. And the Flyers are not this offensive juggernaut, even though lately, post-Toronto, they have scored a good amount of goals, but 4 games left. And the Rangers' record, it's interesting. There's a chance they could fall below NHL 500, by season's end. They're 36, 35, and 7 which is very deserved. This is just, a team that should not be anywhere near the playoffs with the way they've played. And so now it'll be the second game of back to back. This one versus the Islanders. They're 3-0 versus the Islanders this year. And look, I know this sounds, ridiculous in a vacuum, but yeah, I would prefer the Islanders to win this game. Neither team are making the playoffs, right? If you want the Islanders had a legit chance to make it, and the Islanders themselves, they're not eliminated either. Well, it's going to be Montreal that gets that final spot. So at this point, looking to increase the draft possibilities, and if it means some more firings on the way, I don't see much downside to losses at this point. But it's just a disappointment overall with what this team's done. But it'll be at UBS Arena. The one thing with the Islanders is I believe Ilya Sorokin got hurt last game. So that's, even though, the Rangers gotten the better of Sorokin this season, but still, that's a pretty big drop off to what they may have in there. So while I think the Islanders could very well easily get off the schneid versus the Rangers, no, Sorokin would hurt that. And then you combine the fact that Shesterkin has been pretty dialed in, but that's getting way too deep into it. It's not that deep. I mean, this is going to be a game between two rivals that doesn't have a whole lot of meaning other than just kind of jockeying for draft positioning at this point. So the Rangers on the brink of elimination. All it would take is a loss to the Islanders to officially take them out. But, for all intents and purposes, they're there. I felt that way certainly at the Tampa game, and really it's been that way for a while. This is a bad hockey team, and a lot of changes need to be made. And again, final score at Madison Square Garden is the Philadelphia Flyers 8, New York Rangers 5.